Good morning, Ron. How are you?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me on. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Do you want to start with your matchup with the A's and Yankees, or is there another matchup that you're interested in?
I think you can go wherever you want to go. I mean, we do have a game today, which I think is pretty interesting for the Cubs and the Rockies, right?
Yeah, but explain that, though, with where Joe Madden is. Like, certain managers are labeled, good clubhouse guys, or, they're a player's manager, that kind of thing. He's labeled as a guy who doesn't handle his bullpen very well. So how do you get that label, and how do you overcome that label?
Well, I've known that. I mean, if you've been around Joe Madden, I mean, it's hard not to respect the kind of stuff he can do, and I think he's a game changer as a manager. There's five probably outstanding ones in baseball, and he's on that list, with Tito Francona and others. But, I think what ends up happening, Dan, especially in yesterday's game, when you see that the pitchers that Joe was bringing in, the inability of Strop to be ready because he's hurt, the inability to have Brandon Morrow, who got hurt early in the season, and we saw what he did with the Dodgers last year in the NLCS. He's a game changer. No contact. So I think we can judge him on his bullpen, but I would say that his bullpen is not as strong as it's been in the past. I know he had some criticism the way he used Chapman. I always thought he had Chapman for one postseason and that he was going to use as much of Chapman as he could, which he did. So I think the criticism, listen, it's all fair when it doesn't work out, but I think that, their bullpen is not as strong this year as it's been in the past.
When you start to handicap this, trying to figure out, and you got a 5-game series, you got these 1-game playoffs, then you got 5-game series and 7-game series. Do you look at these series differently because of best of 5 as opposed to a best of 7 once we get to those matchups?
Yeah, I do. I think, game number 1 in a game, in a 5-game series is just so important and so important for the home team. Now, that being said, I did San Francisco when they played Cincinnati in 2012. Cincinnati won both games in San Francisco, and San Francisco came back to Cincinnati and won all 3. But that's a rarity. I really think, if you take the Red Sox series, let's say, the Red Sox won 107 games, 108 games, and were unbelievable all season long. But the big test for them will be their greatest starter in their rotation. How healthy is he? So you will know right off the bat in game 1 how healthy Sale is.
Is it a successful season if the Yankees don't get past the Oakland A's?
I would say no. They're a team that I think in the beginning of the year, a lot of people might have picked them over the Red Sox. They did have an amazing year and won 100 games. But coming into the season, I think it was a World Series or bust kind of year for the Yankees. So, no, I think if they lose the wild card, it will not be successful. They went deep last season, and I think if they don't get into the division series, you'd have to call that a down year for a Yankees franchise.
Why is it? It feels like we're kind of overlooking the Astros, and I'm talking about in general here, but it feels like we're talking about the Red Sox, we're talking about the Yankees, and then maybe the Astros love this. That all right, that's fine. You forgot about us last year, forget about us again this year.
Yeah, maybe it's the East Coast bias. I don't know, but I do think the one thing I think that is amazing what the Astros did is that, with not a lot from Carlos Correa, their shortstop. Springer was hurt for some time during the year. Altuve did not have the season and was hurt for a good part of the year. We know Alex Bregman became a star player now, but it really speaks to their depth that they could have all of those players. Brian McCann was hurt, and not have them in their lineup and still set a franchise record for wins. I think it speaks to not only their depth of their team, but it also speaks to what an outstanding year their rotation had. Two guys, Verlander and Cole, both struck out over 250 batters, 5 pitchers with 10 or more wins. I just think they were the team when I look at, even though they didn't win as many games as the Red Sox, they were the team that really night in and night out put a pitcher out there that gave him a chance to win most of the time. So we might be overlooking them because we're not going to see them for a couple of days. But it's hard to overlook them once they start playing again. They're just a dynamite up and down that lineup, especially if Correa gets healthy.
We had Oral Hershiser on last week, and I asked him, when you're looking at Clayton Kershaw and, the comparison sometimes with Sandy Koufax, and Oral Hershiser said he thinks Clayton Kershaw is the best pitcher ever.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think Clayton Kershaw is one of the best pitchers ever. It's so hard because now we're watching him at a different point in his career. I mean, the knock on Clayton, if there ever was a knock, is that in the postseason he has not been as great as he in the regular season. Well, who is? Not many. I think he's definitely on that list. I'm not, one of those guys that says the best ever because I think baseball has so many different periods and generations of the sport. We've seen it all from dead ball era to steroids to. I mean, it's really hard to judge. When I think of the greatest pitchers ever, I think Clemens is on that list. I think Kershaw's on that list. I think Koufax, despite the limited career that he had because of elbow injuries, on that list. I mean, there's so many. To me, it's hard to distinguish him from the half dozen other great ones.
Because you look at postseason success, and somebody like Curt Schilling was brilliant in the postseason. Whitey Ford, great. John Smoltz, great. Jack Morris was great. Like, there's certain guys that the moment. It makes it kind of overshadows maybe what they didn't do during the regular season. But if I said, all right, you got one game to win and you can hand the ball to anybody, who's that guy?
Right now?
Yeah.
I would hand the ball to Justin Verlander. I think he is the John Smoltz of his generation. I think he not only gets it done during the regular season, but in the postseason, he takes it up another notch. We saw it last year in games that they had to win. He was on the mound. I just think that what he's done is amazing to me because as we talk about, we're talking about Clayton and Clayton's, his velocities come back to the pack a little. I mean, why wouldn't it be with all the innings and starts that he's had? But for that, other than that small stretch of about 2.5, 3 seasons, where Verlander was a 500 pitcher and trying to figure it out, he has come back. And unlike most pitchers, like CC Sabathia or someone else, have to regroup and reboot your game, he is at the same level he was, when he was an MVP and a Cy Young in 2011. So I think that's the most impressive thing to me is that he's a great pitcher during the regular season, great big game pitcher, and he hasn't lost a thing on his ability to dominate lineups. That is remarkable.
He's Ron Darling, Major League Baseball on TBS analyst. The wild card game on TBS tomorrow to be the A's and the Yankees. But also trying to troubleshoot this or figure out what is Hall of Fame worthy here in the next 10 to 15 years with pitchers because of the specialization. I look at you're looking at Scherzer. If you got 3 Cy Youngs, are you a Hall of Famer? Corey Kluber with a couple of Cy Young. Are you what is going to constitute a Hall of Fame career as a starting pitcher? Since you might not have too many guys who are getting 200 wins in their careers.
Yeah, Dan, you make a great point. I think that it's going to completely change. I think also, with the younger voting people that vote, younger voters, analytics come into play. I think there's going to be a entirely different change. I mean, when we think about the Cy Young in the National League this year, you're going to have a guy that won, 9 games, 10 games, and Jacob deGrom probably won it. I think we're at a confluence right now where voters are coming off some of the numbers that you and I grew up with, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, 300 wins, automatics into Baseball Hall of Fame. That's going to completely change. I think winning percentage, run prevention, those kind of things are going to be big for starting pitchers moving forward. Awards, of course, like you said. Max Scherzer, I think, with 3 Cy Youngs is an automatic in. I don't care where he finishes his career. Kershaw, less than 200 wins, he automatically goes in if he did not pitch a game in 2019 and beyond. So those magical kind of marks, I think, have already been shut down with Pedro Martinez getting in. You know, I think the big, huge win numbers, the big, huge home run numbers, those don't matter as much as they'll, you know, the WAR and ERA plus and the ability to prevent runs.
Was there ever a guy that scared you when he came to the plate when you pitched?
No, that's pretty funny. Yeah, there's one guy. That's a great question. When I was pitching, you know, you want to say that you never really were afraid of anyone that came in the box or whatever. But Jack Clark, in his heyday, and his viciousness of swing, I always say in today's game, you know, Giancarlo Stanton, who seems like he can hit the ball, you know, those tails we used to hear when we were a kid, the shortstop jumped for it and went over the fence. That's what Jack Clark was like. I mean, because of the viciousness of his swing, he was the only guy that I would throw a pitch to, and then I would lose the ball in his swing. So sometimes I wouldn't, you know, if he made contact, I didn't know where it was going off the bat, which is very unusual. And at times it scared the bejesus out of me, to tell you the truth. And but he was the one guy in the box. He took up the whole box. He was a Paul Bunyan-like, and you knew all he was trying to do is hit a ball 600 feet off you. And yeah, so he's the guy. I'd hate to admit it, but if I'm being honest, I didn't like to see him come to the plate.
Could you tell by the sound if you were giving up a home run as soon as it left the bat?
Yeah, you know, it's a funny that early in your career, you know, you're such a rube that as soon as you throw it in there and if the hitter makes great contact, you kind of know it's a home run, but you're just hoping, with all hope, that the ball stays in the ballpark. And after about my third or fourth season, I stopped looking because as soon as I knew the hitter had hit it, that I knew it was out of the ballpark, so I would just call for another ball from the umpire. But I had a no-hitter through seven innings, and but the last out in the sixth inning in Philadelphia, I threw a pitch to Lance Parrish, their catcher, and he hit a ball straight over my head. And Gary Cardio used to catch me in those days. Whenever I would give up a home run, he would at the plate stand up, and then he would hang his head and look down. and so as soon as he hit it, since I had a no-hitter going, I looked at Kid, and he stood up and put his head down. And I was like, oh, I just ended the no-hitter. So I looked behind me to see where that ball was going because it was going to be the first hit. And Mookie Wilson in center field caught it right before the fence. And Kid looked at me and he pointed like, I got you. I got you. And because he was just fooling around behind the plate.
Oh,
no. Yes, he did.
I talked to Greg Maddux. I said, tell me what's it sound like when you give up a home run? He said, 2 cars crashing.
I would say that it's just the total opposite to me. That when I gave up home runs, it became eerily silent. Like the ball hitting the bat, there's definitely a sound, of course, but to me, everything went like Matrix silent. Like, for whatever reason, as soon as I threw it, and I knew it wasn't a good pitch, and I could see the contact, and the batter's going to get the ball out in front, and, you know, all that stuff. You know that it's a bad pitch, it's going to go a long way, all of that. It just became, like, silent for me.
I got Jack Clark's numbers on you. 9 for 25, 3 homers.
Yeah, well, that sounds right.
But you struck him out 10 times, though.
Well, listen, as hitters and pitchers will tell you, you only remember, kind of the bad stuff. You don't really remember any of the good stuff. I faced, I think the 2 batters I faced the most of my career were Tim Raines and Ryne Sandberg. And I think I did well against them, but I don't remember doing well against them. I remember every single at-bat being, these guys were such game changers. So maybe because they were so good and maybe because I faced them so well, they made me a better pitcher.
Good to talk to you, Ronnie. Have fun with the A's and Yankees. We'll be watching. We appreciate your time as always.
Thanks for everything, Dan. Take care.
Ron Darling.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.